Hello everyone, this is Sarvahita, Assistant Professor of MCA Department from Rohini College of Engineering and Technology. I am here to discuss a few topics of the subject MC4205 Cyber Security. First, let us discuss about system access and authentication mechanisms from Unit 3. First, let us know what is system access. System access is a capability that restricts access to business applications, mobile devices, systems, and networks to authorized individuals for the specific business purposes. This comprises of three distinct functions: authentication, authorization, and access control. Authentication is verifying the identity of the user, process, or device, often as a prerequisite to allow the access to resources in an information system. This function is often referred to as user authentication to distinguish it from the message authentication or data authentication. Authorization. In this context, the system access. Authorization is the granting of access or the other rights to the user, program, or process to access the system resources. It defines what an individual or the program can do after successful authentication. Access control. The process of granting or denying the specific request for accessing and using the information and related information processing services and for entering the specific physical facilities. Access control ensures that the access to assets is authorized and restricted based on business and security requirements. Authorization. A designated security administrator is responsible for creating and maintaining the authorization database. This administrator sets these authorizations on the basis of security policy of the organization and the roles and the responsibilities of individual employees. The process for authorizing users should include the following: associating access privileges with uniquely defined individuals, for example by using the unique identifiers such as user IDs, maintaining a central record of access rights granted to a user ID to access the information systems and services, obtaining authorization from the owner of the information system or service for the use of the information system or service. Separate approval for the access rights from the management may also be appropriate. Applying the principle of least privilege to give each person the minimum access necessary to do his or her job, assigning the individual access privileges for the resources based on the information security levels and classification of information, specifying the networks and network services to be accessed such as files and databases, defining the requirements for expression of privileged access rights, ensuring that the identifiers are not reused. This means that deleting the authorizations associated with the user ID when the individual assigned that user ID changes roles or leaves the organization. User authentication. It is one of the most complex and challenging security functions. There are a wide variety of methods of authentication with the associated threats, risks, and countermeasures. This section provides the overview. That is, it has three sections, three general authentication factors, that is password, hardware, token, and biometric. And this user authentication encompasses two functions: identification step and verification step. Identification step involves the presenting an identifier to the security system, that is assigning the identifiers carefully because authenticated identities are the basis for other security services such as access control service. Verification step. This step involves the presenting or generating authentication information that corroborates the binding between the entity and the identifier. Three concepts are important in understanding this model, that is digital identity proofing, digital authentication. The digital identity is a unique representation of a subject engaged in an online transaction. The representation consists of an attribute or set of attributes that uniquely describe a subject within a given context of a digital service, but does not necessarily uniquely identify the subject in all the contexts. Identity proofing. This process establishes that a subject is who he or she claims to be to a stated level of certitude. So this process involves collecting, validating, and verifying information about a person. Digital authentication. This process involves determining the validity of one or more authenticators used to claim a digital identity. Authentication establishes that a subject attempting to access a digital service is in control of the technologies used to authenticate. Successful authentication provides the reasonable risk-based assurances that the subject accessing the service today is the same as the subject that previously accessed the service. This is a diagram which shows the digital identity model. Credential Service Provider, shortly called as CSP, it is a trusted entity that issues or registers a subscriber authenticators. For example, the CSP establishes a digital credential for each subscriber and issues the electronic credentials to subscribers. A CSP may be an independent third party or may issue the credentials for its own use. Verifier, an entity that verifies the client identity by verifying the possession and control of one or two authenticators using an authentication protocol. To do this, the verifier may also need to validate the credentials that link the authenticators to the subscriber's identifier and then check their status. Relying party, it is shortly called as RP, an entity that relies upon the subscribers, authenticators and credentials or the verifier's assertion of a claimant's identity, typically to process a transaction or grant access to information or a system. Applicant, a subject undergoing the process of enrollment and identity proofing. Claimant, a subject whose identity is to be verified using one or more authentication protocols. Subscriber, a party who has received a credential or authenticator from a CSP. Thank you.